Welcome to this explainer. If you're tuning in, you've probably reached a pretty fascinating juncture in your life. Our 20s and 30s, well, they're mostly about building a foundation, right? We're starting careers, establishing relationships, and really just trying to figure out who we are. But as you cross into your 40s and beyond, the game fundamentally changes. You transition from building a life to managing the rather complex empire you've created. And with that transition, you might have noticed a profound shift in your internal world. So today, we're exploring a topic that resonates deeply with so many of us, looking closely at exactly why you overthink more after 40. If you've noticed a sharp increase in mental fatigue, maybe a heightened sense of background worry, or just a tendency to overanalyze the tiny details of your daily life as you've gotten older, you are in the exact right place. We're going to unpack the mechanics of why this happens, and far more importantly, how we can find our way back to mental clarity and peace.
Let's just take a second to reflect on how this actually feels in practice. Have you ever replayed a conversation in your mind long after it ended? Think about a completely mundane chat you recently had with a neighbor, a colleague, or maybe even your teenager. On the surface, it was perfectly fine, but hours later, you're just sitting quietly, turning their words around, wondering if you said the wrong thing, or searching for hidden meanings and tiny slights that probably aren't even there. You're taking a relatively harmless interaction and turning it over and over in your head without ever actually finding any sort of resolution.
Or perhaps, and I bet a lot of us can relate to this, you're intimately familiar of the classic 3 a.m. wake-up. You find yourself lying awake in the dark, just staring at the ceiling. The house is completely quiet, but your mind is absolutely deafening. You start imagining the absolute worst before it ever happens. You can actually feel your heart rate pick up slightly as you actively worry about futures, health scenarios, or financial crises that may never even come to pass. In the light of the day, these fears seem entirely manageable, but in the quiet of the night, your mind races through these endless, catastrophic loops.
If literally any of that sounds familiar, I want to offer you a very important truth right off the bat. You are not alone. You're not losing your edge, and you definitely aren't broken. It is incredibly common for adults to experience a really sharp increase in mental activity, worry, and overanalysis as they move through midlife. And the reason for this is actually pretty profound. Your brain is fundamentally shifting how it processes risk, responsibility, and emotional data. It's a natural, evolutionary phase of human development. There are very real, very understandable neurological and environmental reasons for the shift.
Now, what's really interesting about this concept is that we have to make a clear distinction here. Thinking in and of itself is not the enemy. Thinking is an incredibly valuable tool. It's how we intelligently plan a family vacation, thoughtfully solve a complex work issue, make sound financial decisions, and ultimately learn from our experiences. The challenge really begins when that thinking stops being productive. When it becomes repetitive, your brain gets stuck in review mode. Think of it like a car stuck in the mud. The tires are spinning at top speed, the engine is roaring, dirt is flying absolutely everywhere, but the vehicle isn't moving a single inch forward. When that mental spinning starts stealing your peace and draining your energy without actually producing a solution, well, that's when healthy thinking morphs into exhausting overthinking.
Okay, let's dive into this and look at why exactly this happens more frequently after 40. The first major reason is simply responsibility. As we age, life just becomes exponentially more complex. Many people in this phase of life find themselves in what's known as the sandwich generation. You are suddenly the emotional and financial anchor for everyone around you. You might be managing heavy, peak career responsibilities while simultaneously raising children who need complex guidance, and at the exact same time, navigating the emotional and medical realities of caring for aging parents. The sheer volume of critical variables demanding your daily attention increases significantly. And naturally, with more variables in the equation, there is a whole lot more opportunity for the brain to worry.
The second reason is experience, which presents this really fascinating midlife paradox. We typically view experience as a pure blessing, right? It teaches us wisdom and helps us avoid making the same mistakes twice. But having 40+ years of experience also means you've accumulated some baggage. You've lived through disappointments, unexpected layoffs, relationship fractures, losses, and setbacks. And because of those lived experiences, your brain's pattern recognition system, specifically the amygdala, is working overtime. It is constantly scanning the horizon, trying to anticipate every possible negative outcome just to spot danger before it happens again. Your brain's ultimate goal is simply to protect you from repeating past pain, but the unintended result is chronic overthinking.
A third really powerful factor is uncertainty. Entering midlife naturally brings up some profound and honestly sometimes uncomfortable questions. Society often sells us this myth that by 40 we should have absolutely everything completely figured out. So when you realize that you don't, it creates friction. You start asking things like, what is my legacy? Am I even on the right path? Or is this it? These deep philosophical questions are entirely normal and totally healthy. But when this natural life uncertainty meets a mind that's already locked into constant analysis, the brain tries to solve these massive, unanswerable life questions like they're a simple math problem. And the result, almost always, is a relentless loop of overthinking.
So, let's observe how this mental overload actually manifests in our daily lives. These are the classic signs of an overloaded mind. First up is mental replay. This is dusting off old memories and revisiting past decisions again and again, searching for answers or closure that may no longer even exist. Then we have future-focused worry, where the mind exhausts itself and spikes your cortisol levels, trying to solve tomorrow's problems today. This inevitably leads to decision fatigue. You might find yourself standing completely paralyzed in a grocery store aisle, unable to choose a pasta sauce, or maybe endlessly scrolling a streaming service for 40 minutes, unable to just pick a movie. The more choices we analyze, the harder it is to act. Ultimately, this leads to a profound loss of peace, because the brain literally treats these imagined future problems almost as seriously as real physical dangers happening right now.
But here is the absolutely most encouraging part of our explainer today. This is the turning point in taking your mind back. Awareness changes everything. Simply recognizing that you are in an overthinking loop creates a really powerful opportunity to respond differently. In psychology, they call this metacognition. That's basically the ability to think about your own thinking. When you realize you're ruminating, you can take a step back and observe a thought, kind of like a cloud passing in the sky, rather than letting it sweep you away like a thunderstorm. You don't have to let your attention remain trapped inside those endless mental cycles.
We can cultivate some highly practical habits to restore that mental clarity. Movement is a wonderful starting point. And it isn't just about physical fitness. Taking a simple walk provides bilateral stimulation, which literally physically calms the nervous system and helps the brain process stress. Journaling is another vital tool. Think of it as a nightly brain dump. Getting your thoughts down on paper removes them from that endless cycle, giving your brain permission to put them down so it doesn't have to hold on to them at 3 a.m. Sleep is absolutely critical. A fatigued brain lacks emotional regulation, making small problems feel like massive catastrophes. And finally, intentional stress management. This means building a buffer zone of quiet reflection, spending time in nature, or simply unplugging for a bit. These practices help create that necessary, healthy space between ourselves and our racing thoughts.
So the crucial point is, not every thought deserves your attention. Your mind generates tens of thousands of thoughts every single day. Some are incredibly useful, but a lot of them, they're just mental junk mail. True wisdom in healthy aging is simply learning the difference. It is incredibly liberating to finally realize that you are not your thoughts. You are the consciousness listening to them. Healthy aging isn't about trying to tightly control every single thought you have. It's really about developing a much healthier, more observant relationship with those thoughts.
I really want to reassure you that the goal here is not to clear your mind completely or to forcibly stop thinking. Trying to force your mind to go blank usually just creates a lot more anxiety. The real goal is frictionless observation. Think of your mind like a really busy highway. The goal is to stop being trapped in the traffic. You don't need to run out onto the highway to stop all the cars. You just need to sit safely on the embankment and watch them pass by. Life is meant to be fully lived, experienced, and enjoyed, not merely analyzed from the sidelines. Deep reflection is undeniably valuable, but finding your peace is valuable too.
You don't have to believe every thought that enters your mind. If you've been struggling with an overloaded, exhausted mind lately, just remember that small, daily habits of awareness and self-compassion can make a truly meaningful difference over time. If you've found this explainer helpful on your journey, please take a moment to like it,
subscribe to the channel, and maybe share it with someone in your life who might also benefit from a little more peace and clarity today. Thank you so much for joining me.